Crockery Mountain is a collaborative community mosaic project facilitated by environmental artist Sean Corcoran. It hangs on the exterior wall of the movie house in Dungarvan, County Waterford, Ireland. This portrait of the artwork was written and read by Patty St. Louis. The Contemplation of Crockery in a Climate of Clutter. Walk across any field in Ireland and you're likely to find pieces of broken crockery with edges worn smooth by time. Many still sport remnants of painted patterns, maybe a boat, a house, or a fish that peer back at you across the table of history. Do you ever wonder about the people who owned them? Were they farmers? How was the dish broken? And when? How did it end up in that ditch near that stone wall? Was the clay dug from a riverbank nearby? One can build a sense of people in a place from the contemplation of crockery. Dig into any field in Ireland, and it's not long before you're connecting potsherds with a time when people were destitute, starving, or fleeing starvation. Perhaps part of the potsherd's story is just the plate, but no food. Sadly, there are plenty of places still today where displaced people walk thousands of miles seeking refuge. Many would feel lucky to have a daily meal, never mind own a plate. Meanwhile, the average American household contains upwards of 300,000 individual items, as do most homes in the Western world. Why do we have so much stuff? Why are we so attached to having so many things that we fail to see the error of our ways? The visual cacophony and social dysfunction created by our overabundance today all but drowns out the lessons of our exiguous past. Environmental artist Sean Corcoran is turning up the volume on the message of excess with his opus of crockery embedded in the colossal community mosaic, Crockery Mountain. Thousands of pieces of discarded delf, novelty mugs, heirloom dishes, and nostalgic collectibles, each with their own histories and sentimentalities, come together in one voice on the wall of the cinema in Dungarvan. Many of the dishes are attached whole, and others are cracked and fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. Very large painted murals are commonplace, but for a mosaic, 12 meters by 4 meters is monumental, and setting full pieces of crockery on any scale is tricky. The artist worked for 7 months in collaboration with his atelier of 59 masterclass students at the Art Hand, the studio and gallery he shares with his wife Miranda in Bunman. Mosaic is a delicate technique, and pottery shards can be dangerously sharp, so volunteers were required to commit to the in-depth study that the course provided. With a bit of crack to go along with the cracked dishes, the masterclass method served as more than just a creative way to get all 244 panels completed and up on the wall. It also provided a platform for enthusiasm and camaraderie to blossom within the group of student artists, and started the conversation about climate that the mosaic is meant to spark. Since 2010, Corcoran has been best known for his ephemeral sand artwork. But his affinity for stained glass and mosaic, incubated early in his career, remains. The durability of mosaic is as poignant a characteristic in this masterpiece as temporality is poignant in a sand drawing, which lasts for only the passing of one tide. Ben Shahn writes in the art history classic, The Shape of Content, that form could not possibly exist without a content of some kind. As the lifespan of mosaic is so significant, and as each piece of the collection harbors its own personal history of purchase, use, and discard, Crockery Mountain can lend itself as a prospectus to a future in which we either sink or swim as a planet. Envisioned and prototyped 14 years prior, the project received support in 2023 from a Creative Ireland Climate Action Grant awarded to ACT Waterford, part of CalMAST, the South East Technological University's STEM program, in partnership with the City and County Council of Waterford. But the story begins even further back, long before Corcoran developed the environmental mindset that drives his work today. At age 16, he collaborated with his father, Jim Corcoran, on a successful reuse business called the Salvage Shop in Waterford. There, salvaged architectural materials like bricks, beams, timber flooring, doors, and glass were repurposed into high-end interiors. Looking at a pile of rubbish that other people thought worthless enough to bulldoze into the ground, he saw something that could be made valuable through creative effort. As resident designer, with a staff of about a dozen craftsmen, it was his job to suggest ways the team could give the reclaimed materials a new life as beautiful, funky, or artistic treasures in someone's home or cafe. The appreciation of teamwork fostered at the Salvage Shop has likewise stood the test of time throughout Corcoran's career. He has an uncanny ability to attract people to a shared vision and lead them down the path of collaborative art to a belief that their challenge is possible. There is strength in numbers, and when people eagerly work together on a shared vision, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. If one man were to create an identical configuration over 20 years, it would not have the same relevance to the community of hundreds of people involved in Crockery Mountain. You need a team on this project for more than just the technical tasks if it's to be effective, says Corcoran. If it's a message you're creating, then you need to talk about it. And this project is very much about the conversation. Key to the mosaic's success was the Call for Materials campaign, Donate a Plate, asking everyone in Waterford to reach deep into their cupboards and attics to see if they could perhaps spare some crockery. The response was phenomenal, as hundreds of households repeatedly filled the bins at 6 drop-off locations. People welcomed the opportunity to purge their cherished and surplus tableware in a way that avoids the landfill and immortalizes it in a community artwork. One local restaurant contributed 70 perfectly good cream-colored plates with a simple brown ring that had been decommissioned by new owners. In an effort to keep up with the latest food fashion trends, they had purchased all handmade delf to pair with their gourmet cuisine. Along with the chipped and passe dishes came a surprising number of precious and revered heirlooms. Even gold-plated items donated after careful consideration were ultimately recognized as more valuable when appreciated in the collaborative project. Rather than lying scrolled away in the back of a cupboard in a private home, they are now part of a united voice. The community continues to follow its investment through updates on social media and is planning additional mosaics around Waterford. One can build a sense of people in a place from the contemplation of crockery. The resultant assemblage tells a complex and confounding history of our burdensome attachment to things. When we look at our own cupboards and see their overflowing, we take note to clear them out. But when we look at the mosaic and peer into hundreds of overflowing cupboards, a clutter crisis is revealed. The amount of crockery collected in just 6 weeks from households with a few token exceptions in just Waterford was indeed mountainous. Scale up the sample from the county of Waterford to the country of Ireland and then to Europe and the whole planet, and you begin to see the enormity of the problem the artist is addressing. When you consider also that this is just the crockery and multiply that to include all the other types of things we have in excess, the mountain can appear quite impassable. Most of us are guilty on some level of having far too many things, and it is important to be conscientious and forthcoming about that fact. Clutter overwhelms, and people are hungry for a simpler life. Interior home improvement programs often say that you can never have too much storage. They showcase minimalist design ruses like secret door panels that are merely a facade hiding the hordes of junk lurking behind them. Japanese writer Marie Kondo sold more than 14 million copies of her book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. With it, she popularized the practice of KonMari, the methodical consideration of whether or not to keep each item in your home. Likewise, Swedish death cleansing practice guides you through the process of letting go of things that no longer serve you. Where do all those jettisoned items go? Secondhand stores, often run as nonprofits by volunteers, are also overflowing and refuse many donations. Whether it's an ill-bought or underutilized item, embedding it into a legacy artwork is a clever, convenient, and regenerative option. Crockery Mountain is a spectacle that bedazzles and bewilders in equal amounts. Pleasing to the eye, yet haunting to the gut, it triggers a visceral sense that something is amiss. People going to enjoy their shopping are confused as they pass by the mosaic. From a distance, you notice first an enormous abstract curiosity, but as you approach and view it more intimately, you begin to decipher the massive amounts of plates, mugs, and cups that together reveal the storehouse of its content. Crockery Mountain owes its title to the huge surpluses of butter during the 1970s, widely known across Ireland as butter mountains. As a mountain greets a wayfarer on a geological landscape, so too Crockery Mountain greets shoppers on a landscape of consumerism, the Dungarvan Shopping Center. Not unlike the ferocious lions of history's most famous mosaic, the Ishtar Gate of Babylon, Crockery Mountain is meant to caution all who dare to enter as they drive by the cinema on the way to the shops. The sheer enormity of it cues one of the most relevant questions of our time. Do I really need more stuff? Maybe I should think carefully about what I buy today. As an icebreaker to the conversation about climate that is abuzz throughout Ireland, the mosaic is surprisingly welcomed by shop owners despite their potential loss of customers. Even they have wised up to the fact that they have to get clever with how they handle marketing and distributions, as Waterford has set its ambitious carbon reduction targets into policy and law. Wicklow-based sound artist Ronan O'Shnoddock, pardon my Irish, bojangles himself in bells and other noisemakers as an antidote to the noise pollution of an overcrowded world. At the end of his music video, King of the Kingdom, with Miles O'Reilly, he describes his technique as similar to the acoustic phenomena of phasing, where sound waves played back at themselves will cancel each other out. Corcoran likewise takes crockery clutter and reflects it back to us, symphonized into an alluring but haunting mirror. Whole plates set vertically resemble acoustic speakers, amplifying the effect. His hope is that our reflection will have the same phasing out effect on our deep culture of having far too many things. Both artists are responding to their disappointment that the quietude and creative problem solving unveiled during the pandemic was short-lived. Instead of sustaining the methodologies used to survive and help our neighbors, we were quickly sidetracked by the rapid return of traffic, wars, and political chaos, which distract our attention away from the principal issue at hand, the environmental emergency before us. Capitalism, by its nature, is a supply-side economic system focused on ramping up our gross national product. It is powered by skillful advertisements honed to promote consumerism and emboldened by our willingness to buy whatever tickles our fancy. Often described as a supply and demand system, the word demand is a misnomer that obfuscates crucial marketing factors geared toward corporate gains. Meanwhile, regenerative farming, environmental stewardship, and human rights are often left out of the equation. Fast food and fast fashion take hold, and people find themselves suddenly confused, having lost perception of the wool that was pulled over their eyes. Our world is littered with inexpensive and disposable items that have costs that are unaccounted for and that don't disappear when you toss them into the rubbish bin. Back in the 40s and 50s, when decorative crockery was broken, it was glued back together and hung on the wall. It was the keep of our mothers and grandmothers who cooked the food and passed down their dishes through generations of daughters. When IKEA came along, crockery became a lot plainer and cheaper. Tableware is considered disposable these days, not unlike paper plates and cups. You are not going to bother gluing a broken dish if you can easily buy a new one. Instead of fine china, we now have overflows of cheap tableware labeled "Made in China." At any given moment, the number of packages flying around the planet wreaking havoc on our climate is incomprehensible, and yet one of the biggest items that consumers are being sold these days is the idea of free returns. There is no such thing as a free return. These days, we are bombarded on virtual shopping platforms by AI feeding us back our favorite colors in order to maximize orders and minimize any hesitations to buy desired but unnecessary things. We must work to remain conscious of the hidden costs on climate and human dignity. Social media feeds you an interesting hat, and you find yourself clicking in for a closer look. What is that thing that I might need in my life? All too often, it is used briefly and either shoved into a drawer with a little bit of buyer's remorse or tossed into the endless stream of trash flowing daily into our oceans and landfills. We rarely look past the rubbish bin. Once the truck comes to take it away, that's where our vision ends, and with it, a circular and sustainable economy. Crockery Mountain refocuses our attention on our choices and reframes our own participation in the crisis as well. The irony is not lost on Corcoran himself, who admits that he too sells mugs with a picture of his sand art on it. How can we talk about economic development in a way that's geared towards saving the planet? For a corporation, it's more efficient to mass produce, but thriving cottage industries help to keep the carbon footprint down. Far too few of us are of the mindset that it is more economical to buy something well-made, regardless of its higher price tag. If the lovely mugs in the supermarket are not truly your favorite, supporting your local potter can yield a lot of bang for your buck. If you buy something special, you'll take better care of it. You'll mind it. It's those consumer habits that Corcoran hopes the mosaic will influence. One can build a sense of people, all of us in a place, planet Earth, all from the contemplation of crockery. Across the globe, we need to take hold of what is happening to our climate, and Ireland is leaping ahead to forward that mission. Particularly in Waterford, people are very much having the conversation about the climate crisis, and unabated consumerism is a key factor. Crockery Mountain is a cultural critique that also symbolizes the mountains of work, mountains of emails, and mountains of information that overwhelm us on a daily basis. Art has always been a great way to reflect and stir whatever social issues are at play around the artist. The awareness and self-reflection that comes to all of our tables in viewing such a spectacle of tableware is key to finding solutions. There's an old Irish saying, for a fella that doesn't make much of an impact in the world, if he didn't do much in his life, they would say that he didn't break much delf. No one shall say that of Sean Corcoran and his team of student artists.